Alright, so it's gonna be a very interesting talk today, very different from what I normally do, but I did feel guided to. And I was able to listen to a video just now by Ella Ringrose about her ayahuasca experience that actually a lot of what she said kind of confirms this topic. So I'm going to talk about it, but first I'm just going to finish up the smoke blend. If you're interested in what is not like straight weed, it's like blue lotus flowers, mullein, and some other herbs mixed in there. It's definitely very nice. So I'm going to finish this real quick. Let's start. And even though it's drizzling a little bit, I am going to leave the windows down so I can air out a bit. Teddy's over there. He has his window down, so when he needs to, he does put his... This is the first time I'm really like smoking with him in the car, so don't worry, he's okay. He's okay. So I realized I put on a lot of mascara, so my eyes look like really dark, which is kind of weird. Also, I did fix my hair. I got some barber tools and I cut it myself. Anyway, so this is kind of going based off of something that was channeled for me by my friends Alicia on Cosmic Hearts Keep Going, and she said that I need to get angry, and I don't think this came up a few weeks ago, but I haven't really allowed myself to do that quite yet. And this is really going to be a video kind of about my shadows, or at least some of the shadows that Spirit has been bringing up for me, because I have a lot of restrictions around certain things like getting angry. And I think it's because, for one, I've created an entire identity around my abuse and my stifling that created me into kind of what I am and what I'm evolving from, but not recognizing that that doesn't have to be my identity. So to kind of go into what I'm speaking about, first of all, I am going to talk about some behaviors and actions, but I'm not really directing them towards my mother, towards my family. I don't speak to them, but I know in the past on a previous channel I brought up some things that were simply my opinion about narcissistic tendencies and things like that. And before I blocked everyone everywhere, I was kind of given a lot of messages were sent my way. That really confirmed what I was saying, but anyhow, I may just shut off comments for this video just because I don't know. I don't want to deal with that. But you can also, like, if you do want to comment, I'll leave it open. I don't care enough. Anyway, so I realized that I've created this entire identity around the abused version of myself, the version of myself that was stifled as a child, as a teenager, and I took pride in it. And this is something I have to recognize even right now. And I make this video both to kind of help trigger you if there are things that you're stifling and suppressing, realizing that that is quite literally whether you're a male or female, that is stifling your divine feminine. When you don't allow yourself to fully express what you're feeling, and you suppress and you suppress and you suppress, you're stifling yourself, you're stifling your chakras, you're not being the most authentic version of yourself, right? So for me, I have always been known as quiet, as nice, as respectful, as polite, you know, always tame, always the good girl, at least in public, right? In private, I was very much shamed for being myself, and you know, I acknowledge that I wasn't the best person and I did some not great stuff, but at the same time, I feel like the amount of shame that I was made to feel on a daily basis, pretty much, and making me out to be the villain and making me out to feel like I was terrible. And even at the lowest point in my life, well, when I finally expressed it, I'd felt suicidal for a long time in my teenage life, and being depressed, and then actually expressing and being vulnerable that I wanted to kill myself or I wanted to die, and being told that I was selfish and that I needed to pray more, and being told that I could have been aborted, but it was like somehow I'm allowed to be here because my mom didn't abort me or because she chose to have me. And, you know, just always being made to feel ashamed of any version of expression that wasn't in line with the good Christian persona and reputation that they had for their household. So yeah, I dealt with that a lot throughout my childhood, teenagehood. And one thing that I've never really allowed myself to do is to be angry, because there's like two parts to it. One, my mother always did say, oh, you need to stop bottling up your feelings, you need to stop like suppressing your anger, because you're gonna one day just explode. And one day I did explode, and I yelled back, and it was like, how dare you, you know? I never was allowed to be safe enough or feel safe enough to express my anger, even slamming a door if I needed to, or, you know, like speaking a little louder. Anything that was seen as me expressing anger or frustration was deemed as rude or impolite, right? I would say something and I would immediately be like, don't talk to me like that. And I would just be left confused as to like, what's wrong with what I said? You know, I'm just saying something. And so that would stifle the way I spoke to people, the way like me being overly aware of my words and being overly like people pleasing and being like super fixated on how other people's emotions are coming through in a conversation. Being empathic, but also it was more of a survival instinct situation where it was like I could sense before I even entered the household who was angry, and it just felt heavy for me. But being in there, me being separated, me trying to separate myself, me isolating myself in my room, me moving, like not talking to anyone, I was being told that I was the heaviness and I was the problem, when in reality I just simply couldn't function in my Leo energy and my light energy in that household. And it always confused me why, like, how is it that when I'm outside at work, at school, with my friends talking, like I'm super light, I'm super positive, I'm super optimistic, I'm super cheery, but when I'm in this household or around my parents, I'm always depressed, I'm always heavy. And I'm being out of that and coming back into this energy of light and love and, you know, excitement and energy, realizing that it wasn't me. And it's just this energy of like getting angry and allowing myself to feel my emotions a little more strongly and coming into awareness of my emotions. Things like crying as well, like something I felt ashamed of, because every time I would cry, because my body was trying to release that energy that was storing up within me because I couldn't get angry, right? So all that energy would be building up and I would cry when I was saying the simplest things, and I would be like shamed for it. Like, why are you such a baby? Like, you're so sensitive. And that was made into something that was villainized. That was like, you know, you're too sensitive, you're such a crybaby. And it's like made into something that was demonized when it should have been something that was supported and, you know, nurtured. Like the main thing that I don't think I really ever experienced in my teenage life at that time, that critical moment of coming into an adult situation, was the nurturing. It was like I was isolating myself to protect myself, but every single action that I was doing to protect myself was being made into something that I was against them and not that they were against me. And, you know, so even lately, being able to just cry when I actually feel like crying, if I need to cry, and being okay with it has been something that has been healing for me. I'm still, you know, kind of dealing with it, because it's like you get to that point where you're like, well, I can't cry anymore because I just have to suck it up and get out. No, you're supposed to feel your emotions. When you feel your eyes welling up with tears, you're supposed to let that pour out so that energy can flow out. If you're feeling angry and frustrated, you're supposed to be able to yell and use your throat chakra and express yourself. And that has not been something I've been able to do. Like, I quite literally tell people, oh, I don't yell, I don't scream, I can't, because going to that level of like going into that higher level of speaking in an angry way just triggers me, because I always associate anger with my mother, and it was almost like it was only something she was allowed to express. She was allowed to yell, she was allowed to do whatever she needed to do to make everyone else feel that anger, but I could not, because then I was being disrespectful. And so I still don't think I've really allowed myself to get angry. I do get you know, I have these conversations with E, and I get into these things about talking with about my mother, and I get super frustrated and super angry, and then like I literally stop myself and I say, you know what, I'm sorry, I need to stop, I can't, like, and it's like, instead of allowing myself to feel that anger, I keep suppressing it, and I keep stopping myself. Even though I feel it, I don't let myself get to the full expression of it, the full point of it, right? It's like being angry, but not feeling like I can let it out still. And so one of the major things that I've been dealing with over the past few months is just how frustrated and angry I am about the use of my money and the taking of my money, and quite literally it being stolen. Because from the time that I started working, I did want to get a job when I was in high school because a lot of other people were doing it, but I wasn't allowed to. I never got a car until I was 20. Even after I got my license, which I had to pay my way. Everything about my teenage life is very triggering for me in terms of finances, because everything that, you know, a lot of people were able to lean on their parents for or feel supported from their parents by, I didn't feel like I had that. Like, it felt like as soon as I was allowed to work by their standards, you know, once I was done with high school, then it was like, okay, you need to make contributions. But pretty soon those contributions became more and more about taking large amounts of my money that I wasn't allowed to know where it was going. You know, I offered at one point, I literally offered, like, I can pay a specific bill if you want me to. Like, the guise was that I was being taught responsibility, but then I would talk to other people, and back then that I would be very nonchalant about it because I thought it was a normal thing. And, you know, I didn't recognize then the behaviors that were being done against me were not right. So I would talk about these things of like having to pay, you know, this amount of money every week, or paying like a large portion of my paychecks every week or every month. Not every month, every week, that I would get paid from my 2 jobs, being made to work 2 jobs even when I was in school, being made to get a second job during COVID, while my parents sat at home for a majority of it, not working. And having to work, or making myself work, because I didn't want to be at home. So I got to a point of working 80 plus, 90 plus hours in a week during COVID. And I became a workaholic, and I created an identity around that, when in reality that workaholic attitude was literally me forcing myself to get more hours, forcing myself to work longer hours so I didn't have to be inside the house, so I could escape from there, and to make more money so that I could escape, but then having to give that money to my mother on a weekly, monthly basis. And then I had 2 sisters during that time who were born, who I had to pay for Pampers and formula, and anyone who has young children knows how expensive that can be, out of my own pocket as contributions. And everything that was my money being taken away from me was made into something where it was me being generous, it was me giving, it was me contributing, when no, it was that money being taken or taken advantage of from me. And so, like, my relationship with money is something that has to be dealt with. My expression of anger and sadness is something I have to deal with, because it was like when we were out in public, we had to be this perfect family because of my stepfather's occupation and his reputation and his role. You know, I would get dressed, and, you know, my parents and my sisters would be in one room. They had their own room, I had my own room. But they would get dressed. I don't really know what the occasion is. I don't have that many good clothes to choose from in general. And I have clothes as a grown teenager from back when I was much younger, like 11, 12, 13, that are childish. And yet I'm supposed to be wearing that because it's more appropriate, right? Being sexualized by my own mother, where I couldn't wear certain things around the house. I couldn't, and I'm like, that is not realizing that now that that's not a reflection of me, that's a reflection of your own insecurities. Because why would you sexualize your own child in your household with the man that you married, when I'm your daughter, you're not supposed to be making me feel like I can't wear a tank top because what? Who am I going to tempt? You know? Being literally, there was one day, because again, I was at the point of isolating myself in my room, and my sisters would want to play with me. So I go downstairs, big t-shirt, because at that time I started wearing hoodies and stuff because I was being shamed about me gaining weight. I was being shamed about my sexuality. If I had any sense of a crush on someone, I was made to feel ashamed about that. So I literally have to heal through the trauma of liking someone and feeling okay with expressing those feelings, because there was one other situation where I did like a certain person and I never said anything, but my parents made this entire story up for themselves that we were somehow communicating throughout the summer. It was like an annual event that we went up to a part of New York, and you know, I would see this person, and at some point, yeah, I did find out that I liked them, but I would only see them once a year. I never had any contact with them. But you know, the next year when he went out of his way to get his parents to get me to come over and stay with them, which I had already done in the past years, it was made into this whole thing of me being the issue and me corrupting him somehow. And like infiltrate, like, I don't know what this, like, but it was always these like stories that were made up against me to make me feel like I was a slut. And it was literally a word that was used by my own mother concerning me, when I did actually come to her and tell her that a coworker of mine that I actually really liked had asked me out on a date, and instead of supporting me through it and, you know, coming as a woman to make me feel supported and help me understand what a relationship is. First of all, I was always referred to a child, so I was said, like, you can't, like, I was like 17, 18? No, I was like 19, 20 at that time. I'm a child, I'm too young to date. But then it quickly became into a thing where I was expected to isolate myself from him, even though I was working with him. I was expected to show them my phone. I was expected to show them my time cards because they wanted to make sure that I actually had clocked into work. I was literally going to work and home. Like, there was no time in my schedule to do anything else. But I had to show them when I was taking up extra shifts. I had to show them, you know, my time card to make sure, so they knew that I did in fact punch in and I wasn't just lying to them about going somewhere. You know, I had to share my location at all times. But yeah, I was basically made into a slut. Like, oh, it's because you're wearing tight jeans. Like, basically, like, no man can ever love you for you and your personality. It's just the fact that you are wearing tighter jeans now and you're gaining weight and blah blah blah, and you know, it's not about you, it's just about how you look. And that experience was the most traumatic experience, especially because it was my mom and my stepfather both sitting there against me, as they always did. But that particular experience has traumatized me so deeply in terms of love and relationships, because every time I even get to a point of liking a guy or anyone, I always find myself receding, because I can never fully express myself to this person, because I feel like I'm the problem. No one can ever love me for me. No one can ever, like, literally, my negative self-talk isn't even from myself. It is from things that I've heard said about me or to me by my parents. And I realized that last year, but just this year coming into it, it's like literally everything negative that I tell myself isn't even my own words. It's literally like words that I've heard against me, which is wild, I think. But yeah, so there are a lot of things that I need to deal with because of my upbringing, and, you know, healing from not even religious trauma, because I do have faith in a higher power, but like I've gotten to a point where I like can't even look at you know, sermons that I used to watch or preachers I used to watch. Like, I don't even want to be like anything associated with Christianity. It like annoys me when Spirit brings me like scriptures that I know or allows me to reference things from the Bible, because I've read that book like at least twice front to back, and you know, I know it well enough. But it like now it annoys me even when it comes out of my mouth, and I know I reference it a lot, but I'm like, it annoys me that it's even a part of my knowledge. But yeah, like I don't even feel safe enough going to a church, or like that whole entire religion has now become a scourge for me because I associate it with my parents and hypocrisy and fake, and you know, even before, like there were things I just didn't agree with how they would treat other groups of people, other religions. You know, I had a friend who was a Muslim, my first friend, both in college and in high school, both females were Muslim, and they were my bestest friends ever. But as soon as I would bring it up to my mom to like, oh, can I go over, can I spend some time with them, no, we don't associate ourselves with them, we don't, you know, you're not allowed to. And it's just like I can't look at that group and, you know, I can respect them as human beings, but I can no longer associate myself with being a Christian. I can't. It just feels so fake to me. And yeah, I resonate more with spirituality anyway. So there's not even that. Like last year, I really allowed myself to explore spirituality because I had questions and I had things that I just didn't agree with completely in the Bible, and I just wanted to know more and see more. And I had read the book of Enoch, and everything in that book made so much more sense to me than a lot of what was being preached and spoken about. In terms of creation, in terms of, you know, magic, in terms of all these things. And reading the book of Enoch literally changed my entire view, because I was like, finally, here's something that makes sense to me. And it would make, like, this is what we should be learning. Anyway, so yeah, I have a lot of shadows that have been coming up for me over the past few months. I've had several spiritual awakenings over the past few years, I think, for sure. But last year was definitely one of the most intense. And coming into this year, I'm so much more introspective that I tend to get downloads a lot more frequently. So those downloads come through a lot. And yeah, it's just this like recognition that there's a lot I have to heal through because of what things that were said to me and done to me. And like, my friend E literally channeled through for me that like, you literally just have to do the opposite of what you've been conditioned to do to begin to find healing and find yourself exceeding those. And yeah I'm just thinking about, like, even right now I'm in a situation where I really like someone, and I have kind of just been tiptoeing around it because I'm like, this is something I want to be able to express, but I feel too ashamed to do so. And I'm like, it just seems so wild and like, I don't know. So yeah, I didn't really go into a lot of what I thought I would be, but even just having that conversation brought out a lot of things that I'm like aware of, but just verbalizing is like, damn. So yeah, those are a lot of things that I'm working on. And you know, if you'd like to have that come through for you, or you'd like me to help you work through that, you can definitely use any of the options in my description bar, because they're all tarot readings, but we can pull a few cards about like shadow work, and you know, things that you may want to work through to move to your next level. For me, the amount of abundance and prosperity that I want to see in my life concerning doing tarot or doing more spiritual things and getting paid for it, a lot of my money limitations are still tied to what I experience, right? So I even have to heal through seeing my own mother have these amazing ideas for inventions or things and never acting upon it. And it was always about her stifling herself, and for what, comfort, I don't know, or for the sake of stability, and I never resonated with that. So even coming to a point now where I can break out of that, and well, I already have, but even more so saying that, you know what, I'm not going to apply for a job when I get afraid, right? I'm not going to allow myself to get to a point of fear where I trap myself again into a system of working and being miserable. I'm not going to do that. I know that I am meant to work for myself. I know that I am meant to make money doing what I love to do, or what I enjoy to do, enjoy doing. So standing firm and telling the universe, you are going to bring forth abundance into my life in exactly the way that I need to, but also telling myself that I'm allowed to do that, right? So again, I really hope that you, even watching this video, it helps you to kind of think of your own introspective process and recognizing where your own limitations are, recognizing what your shadows are. And maybe up until now you haven't been fully aware of the things that you need to work through. Maybe up until now you've been like having things trigger you and not realizing that that's a sign for you to work on those things within yourself. You know, maybe you just don't know fully how to work through that process of, you know, bringing things up for yourself. Like, if you have anything that angers you, frustrates you, if you think about it and you suppress it, that is a number one indication that that is something you have to deal with. So yeah, yeah, I definitely, again, didn't expect to be bringing up any of my personal stuff. I was literally just going to make a list of things that I am working on and working through, and not working through, but the shadows that Spirit has brought up for me. But yeah, I'm sure this will help someone. Maybe you just need that confirmation that things you've dealt with in your own family life that you were made to be the villain for aren't your fault. In reality, it was all projection, and recognizing that a lot of the things that you created as truth for yourself is not the truth. It is merely a lie that you have now encapsulated yourself with, right? Earlier I said that I have realized that a lot of what I've kind of projected myself as to other people and said that this is what I am, this is what I do, etc., etc., realizing that even though I am a kind person, I am a nice person, recognizing that my anger can be just as fierce as my kindness, right? Realizing that my loyalty is just as fierce as me cutting you off, right? And recognizing that I'm allowed to have that duality. I don't have to be all of one thing and not the other thing, which is a major thing that a lot of us have to heal from. We don't have to just be good and just be light and just be love. We're allowed to be that dark feminine, that dark masculine energy. We're allowed to feel through our emotions. We're allowed to express ourselves, right? Don't do it to harm anyone, but if you even just need to scream, you know, in your car, or if you need to scream into a pillow, if you need to walk outside and punch something, like, do it, you know? And recognizing that you don't have to, you know, exert physical violence on someone else in order to feel better, but you have to allow yourself to feel. And I feel like we demonize as a society too many people who express their anger, who might shout, who might yell. Yes, they may need a healthier way to express it, or a different time. Sometimes people express it at the wrong times to the wrong people, but not demonizing. Especially any parents watching, if your child is expressive, stop restricting and suppressing them. Stop doing that. Don't think that just because your child becomes quiet and more passive and less confrontational, that is somehow a healthy indication that they're a better, more disciplined child. That is not healthy. That is not healthy. My entire life, I've been literally conditioned to not express any form of pain, anger, frustration, sadness. It was always fix your face, or, you know, you're making me look bad, or like any You just pinched me, you just beat me. How can I not cry? How can I not show that I'm sad or cry out in pain? And we're in public now, so you want me to somehow appear as this perfect daughter, like nothing just happened. Like, that is ridiculous. That is totally demonic. That in itself is demonic. If we want to talk about demonic, that is demonic. Why would you do that to a child? You know, why would you do that to a child? I really love the new generation of parents that I see on Instagram who are literally actively pursuing parenting in a healthy, safe way for their children. If you don't want to have children, don't have children. And for the longest time, I even allowed myself to think that I didn't want a family, I didn't want children, because I did not want to be an expression of my mother. I literally have told my friend E, I was like, I am very afraid of becoming a mother because I don't want to replicate what I saw and what was done to me. And she was like, you can't, because you are aware of it and you have expressed it, and you know you would never treat anyone else that way. And I'm like, that is true, but it still scares the hell out of me, right? Even getting into a relationship where I know I want to be in a committed relationship, and I know I want, you know, I'm a loyal person, so I tend to latch on to people who treat me right. And knowing that I want a committed relationship, but being in a place where I frown away from commitment because I'm afraid of getting to that next step of like being in a relationship with someone who gets to know all about you, who gets to see all sides of you, who gets to know your quirks. And it's a vulnerable place. I was only really vulnerable with one person in my life, and that was the one person that my parents demonized me about, and that was the whole traumatic situation I was talking about. So ever since then, I've literally closed myself off from everyone and anyone in that deeper way because, you know, I associate that with pain, right? It's like, I don't want to let anyone know too much about me because then they're going to use it against me, even though he never did. But my parents did, and somehow in my mind I've equated that with him, and it's not. So it's like there is so much to heal through, but even getting to a point where you can allow yourself to acknowledge that you have to heal through stuff is a major part. Stop trying to be perfect. Stop pretending to be perfect. You're not perfect, and it's okay. But like, stop telling the world that you are, and stop trying to be. You're allowed to have duality. You're allowed to have two sides of yourself. You're allowed to be less than perfect. And I think in the spiritual community, you see a lot about love and light and peace and joy, and that's one side of it. But because a lot of us are in that higher vibration, but when things get heavy, when things get dark, when someone like messes with you the wrong way, I think that you are allowed, even if it's not to them necessarily, recognizing that, you know, it might be a more spiritual interchange that's happening and it's not specifically them against you, but just like expressing it in general, even if it's getting into your car with your spouse and just saying, you know what, that really frustrated me and that was not okay, and then breathing it out. You know, and then it's like, okay. But like for me, even hearing my mother always being frustrated, always being in something about like argumentative, always being in conflict, always yelling at me or my stepfather or someone, and like being frustrated, and it's like that was like an overexpression. It was like, what are you even doing to kind of alleviate that for yourself? So that's also something that I associated with being angry, where I don't want to get angry because I don't want to treat other people that way, and recognizing that I can have that expression with myself, and journaling and meditation and working through my emotions for myself. So yeah, I think that's all for today. Or well, for now. I do plan on doing a reading later. But for now, I do want to do my nails first, and then I will come back and do a reading. But yeah, that is kind of what's been going through, what I've been going through, what I've been working through. And yeah. I will see you guys in the next reading or next video. Bye.